Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sloth, and just updating on our situation. Last time I made a video, we mentioned that there was quite a bit going on as far as uh, the negative side of things, and I also updated and said, hey, we're not trying to say boohoo, poor us, but rather sometimes this is how life goes. Thankful and grateful to update that things were fixed relatively easily. And I don't know if this interests you guys any at all or whatsoever. If this is boring, I have plenty of other things to talk about, but I am mechanically inclined and I enjoy those things. So I'm going to kind of go into detail a little bit about how we fixed the van and how we fixed the AC unit because I find some joy in doing that stuff as long as it works. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're fixing things, there's about 100 that go wrong. Anyways, if you don't enjoy this, please comment, let me know. And like I said, there's plenty of other things that we could talk about. So here goes. The AC unit. What was wrong with it? In order to diagnose what was wrong with the AC unit, first we turned it on. I discovered that we had power to the AC unit. We had a compressor that was making noise as if it was working, and for about 5 minutes each day that I tested the AC unit, we had cold air for 5 minutes. That kind of led me to a couple conclusions. Knowing that we have some cold air and knowing that I hear some noises in the compressor, I determined one of two things. We know the compressor is working because there'd be no cold air without it. So the only other thing that could be wrong is the fan motor in the AC unit. The other thing that could be wrong is low freon levels or refrigerant levels in the AC unit itself, which also would cause less cool air because the refrigerant is what cools your air. We discovered that it was a fan motor, and how we discovered that is purely and simply the fan wasn't moving. One of two things can be wrong with your fan motor. Actually, one of three things, I think. We'll figure this out if there's two or three in like 5 seconds. One, the blade and the motor itself can be locked up, which is a replacement situation 9 times out of 10. Two, the capacitor is bad for your fan. Now, 9 times out of 10, that capacitor for your fan is also going to be connected to your compressor. If it's not, you definitely should replace the capacitor before you replace the $100 fan. I think this is what mine cost me. It might not be what it cost you. But is there a 3? Is there a 3? 3, yeah, 3 is just a bad motor itself. Not locked up, but the motor's bad. I'm sorry. So 3 is the motor bad. 1 was the locked up motor, and 2 is the capacitor is bad. But there is a single capacitor, so I know that the capacitor is working. And the compressor is working. I can hear it. I can feel the cold air coming through. So it's got to be that fan motor being bad, even though it's not locked up. It's just got to have gone bad over time. We have a very old AC unit, so those kind of things happen. So I ordered a new one online. Thankfully, I found it on eBay. eBay can be your best friend sometimes. And I got it on eBay for about $100. We did get a quote, in case you're wondering, about how much it would cost us to replace our unit, and for our size house and our location, the work that would need to be done, whatnot, it would cost about $3,400 for a new one, which I will say is not worst case scenario. However, I don't know of many people in my realm of things that have $3,400 sitting in the bank account ready to just buy a new AC unit. So I'm very thankful for $100. We got a new motor. I think it was like $108 after shipping and handling. And we put that new motor on. With the motor, the only difficulty that came was getting the old fan blade off of the old motor. Because when you order the motor, they generally don't come with a new fan blade. You can order a new fan blade, but why would you spend the extra money? Our fan blade wasn't rusted out or anything like that in particular. It was in good condition. So it just took some time and some carefulness to get that off the shaft and onto the new one. And that after that, it went with relative ease. We just hooked it up. Actually, most motors tell you right on the motor how to hook it up. If you get an identical motor, I mean the exact same motor, it's literally just a matter of, hey, brown wire here, brown wire for the old one. Pull off the brown wire, put on the brown wire, etc. However, that's not always the case, so make sure you watch how you're putting things together and you figure out what goes to what. Sometimes you can hook up the powers backwards and get your fan blade spinning. Generally, your fan should be blowing up, out of your air conditioner. A lot of people think it should be sucking in and blowing out. But since it's an outdoor unit, or when it's an outdoor unit, it should actually be blowing up and out. It's sucking the hot air out and... Hi. It's sucking the hot air out and keeping like things like leaves, dirt, dust, whatever, out, bugs. And that helps preserve the unit because it doesn't get clogged up. The fan motor doesn't get clogged up. The compressor doesn't get clogged up with all the things that outside has to offer. So, anyways, that fixed that, and we're very thankful that that's fixed. It was a lot cheaper than it could have been. Going to the van was another case of, wow, that was actually didn't really cost us anything. I don't believe well, I had to buy new jumper cables, so it cost me about $8. I bought new jumper cables because for some reason mine were bad. I hooked them up and jumped the van because the van kept dying. And I don't think I mentioned that, but I did mention that the brakes were going bad. They were locked up as far as parking brakes go. We got the parking brakes locked up. All I did was disassemble the parking brake assembly, and that's not really a big deal. I mean, parking brakes are a good thing to have, but until I figure out where it's locked up and if I either A, need to replace it, or B, need to WD-40 the crap out of that, I will leave it disassembled. It's not the end of the world. We don't take that van anywhere. It's old, and we use it for like grocery runs and stuff. So as far as the power dying goes, though, I Googled the symptoms. So one of the things that was happening is the flashers on one side, like my turn signal, whatever you call them, was blinking really quickly, about double or 3 times the speed of the driver's side. And generally that's an electrical issue, a ground issue, or a bad fuse, a bad something. If somebody used something that's not a fuse as a fuse, that's a bad idea. Don't ever do that. So generally that's a pretty expensive issue. Electrical issues are kind of a big deal. We got this van, mind you, from my grandmother, and my family is kind of sons of the South. Fix it yourself. Obviously I know how to fix things, but some of my family is... Well, let's put it this way. There's a big difference between housing wire, car wire, the kind of wires that are inside your little phone, the kind of wires that are in everything. They're different. They're very different for reasons. Load, purpose, strength, durability, all of those things, what's covering them, they're different for a reason. Inside our van, running from right next to the motor all the way back to the tailgate, was a long piece of housing wire. Now, mind you, I did not do this. Please don't think I'm this crazy. But that was actually a family member of mine who, before we got the van, did it because they were hauling things with the van on a trailer, and the van didn't have the proper hookup for the lighting. So what they did is they tapped this housing wire into the power of the battery, which is killed the battery. When we got it, we put a new battery in it because this was also draining power and killing the battery. But then they hooked it up to the trailer. That's not the right way to do things, and I usually encourage to do things the right way. Even though I do things myself, I like to do them the right way. It just makes sense. It's usually done the right way for a reason. There's a reason they call it that. But that's just kind of an example of why I was so afraid this is going to be a big issue. I mean, we've got a housing wire in this thing. First thing I did was pull that out and make sure it wasn't connecting anything in the way of anything or causing anything to draw power it shouldn't have been. It was not. Okay, so when I Googled the symptoms, the number one result I got for my vehicle specifically was that it's actually an issue with the turn signal bulb or a short in the turn signal assembly, which is a relatively actually cheap fix. And I was like stunned and shocked and thought, no way. So the number one thing I saw was just to replace a turn signal bulb. And why it costs us nothing is we actually happen to already have one. So that's awesome. I replaced it. We have not had any issues since. Why was the bulb bad? Now, sometimes the manufacturer can have made, shipped, and given you a faulty bulb. 9 times out of 10, that's probably not going to be the case. What the problem is in this instance is before the van was given to us, it was wrecked on that side of the vehicle in a minor accident. However, it did crack the headlight assembly, specifically the turn signal part of the headlight assembly. It's an older vehicle, and sometimes headlights get foggy. So I couldn't see into it well enough to know that actually there was standing water when I took the assembly off. I could literally just sit there and pour the water out. Just an FYI, that's not supposed to happen. So when I talked to AutoZone, which I would actually recommend O'Reilly's generally, but AutoZone's not terrible. I just prefer O'Reilly's. But AutoZone happens to be really, really close. So I talked to them and was trying to get an idea of what it would cost me. It'd be $50 just for the turn signal assembly. On our van specifically, the turn signal assembly and the headlight assembly are two different things. Sometimes they're one and the same. Actually, oftentimes they're one and the same. But so what I did was I hopped on eBay, because you should always price check. You should always look around before you just make an impulse buy or hey, that's not that bad of a price buy. You should always look around. And I actually found on eBay for $60 I got 2 headlight assemblies and two turn signal assemblies, so 4 parts. Whereas with AutoZone I was only getting the one for $50 for $60. And that's fantastic. I've ordered them. They're on their way. This new bulb, the van is not dying anymore. That was definitely the issue. I'm not getting any other draws from power. The battery is lasting. The battery is living and surviving. So as soon as we can get the cracked turn signal assembly replaced, then we'll be good to go. And I'm just so thankful for that. Anyways, beyond all that, please let me know if you enjoyed this, if you kind of like the mechanical talk, if you kind of like the insight, the know-how. I would also like to provide a disclaimer. If you listen to any of that, be careful. Use safety precautions when you're working on things. Use your jack stands when you're using a lift. Use, turn off your power. When you're working on your AC unit, turn off your power. When you're working with electricity, turn off your power. Unhook your battery. Unhook your, or turn on, pull out your fuses, or flip your breakers. Usually with an AC unit, there's an external breaker out there. It's usually a pretty big thing, especially if it's an older one. Pull that out or flip it off, depending on what kind of breaker or switch you have out there. Turn off your power. Be safe. As far as the rest of our life goes, things are pretty good. I think I mentioned before that Nicole's recently graduated. We're kind of shopping around at our options and trying to decide what this next stage of life looks like for us and where we're going. And we're very excited to see that. We're a little bit nervous because of things like vans and cars and AC units breaking down all at the same time. We are currently working on flipping our house. I want to be careful saying flipping, because sometimes that has a bad connotation with it and people think like, oh, the cheapest and just trying to get out of it. But we actually really enjoy working on our house, and we put some pretty nice floors on them. I think in the video I walked around, you can see that that the floors were relatively nice, and we just really enjoyed it, putting that time and effort in and designing and all that, but still keeping within a decent, reasonable budget. If you want to know anything about how we do that, or if you want to be a part of any of that, we're considering doing the kitchen next, or possibly the bathroom. So like I said, comment, let me know if you want more of this. Maybe we can do a walkthrough of how we're doing the kitchen and how we're doing the bathroom over time. That way we can turn around and sell the house and be positioned to either move up in house as my wife finds a job, or be able to move somewhere else if the location needs to change. I think that's about as much as we've got going on right now. Emma and Jackson are doing great. They're healthy. They're doing well. They're adorable, and I love them with all of my daddy heart can do. Words, sentence. Anyways, how are you guys? What's up? Still don't see any videos from you guys, so it's kind of lonely. I don't know if you can tell, but kind of worked on my background here. It's a little dark. As time goes, I will be working on this a little better. Like I mentioned before, don't really have all the money in the world to just immediately start pouring into all these things, and I think that's okay. I think it's good to start with what you have and where you can. We have a camera. The batteries are dead, but I think this camera is going to provide a better audio visual quality. We'll test it out when we get the chance, and then I want you to let me know what you think about it. Until next time, this has been Sloth, and we hope you join us again. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more, check out our channel. And if you want to subscribe, we wouldn't be opposed to it. You don't have to subscribe, but like, you can. Until next time.